was about to join us when we went off last time with Sam, and we figured out what was happening. It was Ruapehu internet is not 5G capable or something, so I wasn't exactly sure what was happening. I was wanting to make sure I'm not going crazy. So without further ado, bringing in Liz Brooker. Kia ora, Liz, how are you?
Kia ora.
All right.
Internet.
Yeah, well, now we're going data. So either I hope you're sponsored by Spark or Vodafone because you're about to crank through some of the megabytes here. Let's maybe start with this one. What's your current take on what's happening there right now, specifically?
Primarily, I think what we're seeing at the moment is actually probably a good decade of interesting management. I said a lot of people and a lot of things, but I think the COVID 2 years of lockdown, low snow levels have just brought everything to a critical mass point where started borrowing money in 2017 for some shiny new stuff, with other people's money rather than our own, which was bubbling away, but not the infrastructure that we needed to keep it upgraded.
So now, do you think that this situation with the with PwC getting involved, this was inevitable? What led to this point? Obviously, some bad. Obviously, everyone's had a bunch of bad financial situations, but this has been more. Has this been leadership or overinvestment or wrong strategy? Or if you were looking at this from a post-mortem scenario in terms of the current vibe, what's your take on how it got to this point?
I think we obviously had a change of leadership in 2000. I can't, in living memory, I've been here 16 years now. I moved. Sorry to all those skiers. I was saying, woohoo, we actually made $1 this year. The infrastructure was getting really bad. Obviously, the concession negotiations were integral to RAL at both Wakapapa and Turo, because there was no point investing large if you were only going to be allowed to operate for 10 years or whatever. But there seemed to be a very distinction where there was this monetization of absolutely everything possible. Being called product. We lost our free snow play area. Almost this raping of everything that could possibly be, along with that, in and around $30 million borrowed. I just don't know how we were ever going to pay it back, to be honest. And there was business cases that were read, charts that are proving that things like the patronage for the gondola is only really attractive. We were promised 300,000 non-paying non-skiing customers. So what's happened, when I got a phone call at lunchtime on the Tuesday from a journalist asking me to investigate it, I wasn't surprised by any stretch of the imagination. I'm actually surprised.
So you're talking about essentially the commercialization of a business that's trying to make revenue, pay down debt. Where it sits right now, do you think RL will cease to exist? Someone else will come in? You're obviously hearing stuff on the streets in Ruapehu. What's basically bubbling away, or what is the banter, and is it credible?
Oh, credible in this? You just need to be on Facebook. Everyone's got an opinion. I think John Fisk and his team have got a number of scenarios. To be honest, we all know Turo's. That shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. If you look from a communications, he separated all their branding about 4 or 5 years ago. Even when you go onto the website, Turo Wakapapa, which looks really weird when you're trying to market one pass for 2 ski. So I think that wouldn't be a surprise, but I don't think or selling Turo is going to fix RAL's problems. I think there are systemic stakeholder groups It's you saw the press release that came in last week. There is a requirement under the Crown's concessions that named iwi have partnership relationships with above the concession. It's a Crown requirement. They are integral into moving. But as much as we got the bean counters and the lawyers all scrambling for their Excel, the only way forward to ensure longevity of this is actually ensuring that all the stakeholders, this isn't just about a couple, bunch of life pass holders who passed to their playground cancelled due to lack of financial problems.
Well,
it's a very big, complex problem.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it brings up that point you talked about, if there's essentially like segmentation of branding between both sides, it brings up the one side versus the other, and in a spot where you're trying to create, cultural and community and commercial unification, it makes it trickier. Justin was just jumping in saying, will this be a catalyst for one side of the maunga opening rather than the two? And finally, people accepting that the fact that Shakapapa terrain is superior to Turo. And then Justin, the only problem is the amount of infrastructure on the roadside can't just benefit and would cost way more to remove it. Okay, so do you think it would be good or bad if the mountain just split into one side open, one didn't? Or is that actually going to eventually damage and hurt the small ski towns commercially for jobs and tax revenue and all sorts? Good or bad? Split or not to split?
I think it's, again, another complex. Many business cases and reports in this region that quote the statistics that they want to read. I've heard that coming off the hill that RAL creates $200 million worth of tourism. I'd challenge that statistic. In 2019 as being the highest GDP related income, and that's over the entire year. That's 98 million. 100 million. But what we have to realise in the Ruapehu is that that's actually spread across Taupo, Whanganui, Manawatu, Taranaki. I think it's, as much as Hui, I think the watershed moment is actually we've got to actually start dealing in good tide what's actually going to work for everyone. Whakapapa, Turo, but the other problem there is how that's actually going to work. If RAL City, it needs to then on 16,000 life passes. If run by RAL, Turo comes in as a private ski field owned by NZ Ski. However, there are three groups of Auckland business people who all fancy their idea. If Whakapapa stays as RAL, they have to honour those passes and conditions. The concession to operate at RAL is capped at 6.5. That's because all the infrastructure that's in there and the speeds of the lifts and all the terrain they've got, the capacity to flush the toilet sits at that 2. What's going to happen when on a bluebird day you've got 6,500 at Turo, normally 6, they all now are going to demand their rights as life pass holders and seasons. They all smash Whakapapa. We're going to be stopping 4, 5, 6. Sorry, we're closed.
So if you're
as much
a
as
business,
sorry.
No, I was going to say, if you're a business looking to potentially buy it over, if you've got some rich Aucklanders, you're coming down from Ponsonby with your Range Rover or whatever it may be. If you're looking at this as a thing, surely those 16,000 people would be seen on paper as a massive liability, right? So it would make sense to not have them anywhere associated with the RAL if you try and do it. Do you think it makes more commercial sense to start something new and try and get the concession across and then just do something there? Or do you think there's too much weight that's going to be held from either iwi or political pressure and stuff attached to the branding of RAL as a commercial entity?
I think regardless of what's actually our region, our communities, and our iwi are at the should be making processes rather than just the bean counters. If it's going to, if people, we had Doc a few years ago talking about my question, and a lot of people around here, is what's our Manaaki promise as a community? If we're not giving you a great experience, and that hurts us, at our, that on the current structures and this almost this abject rapey snow players now, you can't go and play in the snow for free anymore unless you're doing it we've got to get back to what we're here for, and that's actually a passion of snow and protection of that and the experience of the people we're wanting to bring here. As I said, if we keep life pass holders going and we run them around to Wakapapa, then the anger, it was bad enough under COVID when people couldn't get a car park.
So isn't it, I was going to say, isn't it potentially hypocritical if on one hand it's going more and more into debt, so they're being forced to make more commercial gains elsewhere, and then on the other, if they start charging to what was free, like the snow play area, to do it, do you think that's more tension internally or externally? Because it seems it needs to be, on one hand it's like hurry up and make money so you can survive, and on the other hand it's like stop screwing the locals who can't even afford to get up there, because that tension feels like it's almost unnecessary if the rest of the thing was actually done well, because it's going to surely act as a feeder for people to want to be able to go on the mountain, and they can play in the snow, and then eventually they can see the chairlift, they want to go on the chairlift, like that just feels like such a really kind of funky conundrum strategically, when you have to almost try and screw the people you're trying to help to not screw the people who you're currently helping.
It's the dynamics. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the solution is. There are so many issues. We sit there and keep hearing about employment. There's been some really crap reports talking to 198. Well, that's currently the Kaimahi. They're all scheduled to be effectively closes the season, losing their job anyway in a couple of weeks, bar the for summer. In a normal season, there is, I've seen figures between Kaimahi. Over half of those Kaimahi come from overseas, and we need them. They're our instructors. There's some really beautiful people that come in winter. In our tourism spend, I'm just wondering when they go in the market, they're actually also classed as tourists to our region. So there's a bit of a dynamic there. But we don't actually have that many locals who can afford the mountain. We keep hearing about all these employment opportunities, and like Sam, previous businesses and hire, but we're way low in that 70 up the hill, because the pay is so low and the payment conditions are. How can we strike that balance? Yeah, it's going to be that's the COVID and the low snow just amplified what crucial struggle, I think, for decades.
Clint's just jumping in with the loss of snow over the years, going from a 6 metre year to 2 on average for the last few. How much longer will we have snow in the North Island? It brings in a different point too, because obviously if you're looking at it strategically for the long term, there are hundreds of other resorts all around the world, and these big corporates have jumped into it. They clearly bump up the summer side, they get into gondolas and sightseeing and mountain biking and all these other sort of things. But then once again, specifically because you can't just go and do whatever you want on there, it's always going to be this potential, I guess, tension within commerce and culture. Do you think because of the iwi relationship, it's actually been seen from external possible investors as a massive liability that's not worth even messing with because it's going to suck up too much resource and time?
Well, I don't think it's all about partnership, and that's key across, literally all the stakeholder groups. 20 years ago, it almost wasn't a thing. Still waiting for the Kahuiamonga report to actually come out and be written to figure out they had more than one iwi in the rohi.
Barry, 6 foot.
I don't want to
dreaming.
speak for iwi.
So
Yeah,
good.
6 foot. That was 1 year, mate. And that big Wednesday with the white single bluebird. Yeah, Mr. Corker. Sorry.
No, I get it. Oh, Liz, I got someone else that's about to jump in, but I really appreciate your time. I'm stoked that it's good to know that the data is actually better off your cell phone than Wi-Fi in Ruapehu. It's something I did not realise. Well, now we've known, and I apologise if you get this massive big data bill. I'm more than happy to chip in, but I appreciate your time, Liz.
Nah, kia ora, mate. And positive, because it'll work.
I get it. Love your work. All right, Liz Brooker. And without further ado, there's someone that I'd like to bring into the show. He's talented. He's gorgeous. He's got a beard bigger than myself, and he knows more about snowboarding than almost every other person in New Zealand. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Smith.
Kia ora, bro.
How are you, bro? Where are you? Are you stuck in Auckland traffic? What are you doing?
Okay, I pulled over to the side of the road because this Cordeto was fascinating and I thought Liz had some good points. And because you asked, so for the audience's benefit, I have absolutely no credibility whatsoever when it comes to business. I'm just purely a board sports enthusiast, and Rebecca can explain how so. But yeah, happy to be a part of the Cordeto.
You need no introduction. So at a macro, how do you think this, it's obviously been a gong show commercially and culturally with a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. How do you think this will eventually end up playing out in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years even?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But what I hope is that much like, and I put this on my own personal Facebook a couple of days ago, I remember when I first started snowboarding back in 98. I was 10 years old, my first experience on the Maunga. So a couple of years after that was when Turo and Ariel came together. And I was revisiting that because I remember like the Magic Mountain and the Wizard, and then Turo being its own thing and super segregated. And then when they came together, you know, the fact that Turo went under and the Commerce Commission jumped in twice to say, nah, this can't go ahead, you're going to monopolise the North Island. Inevitably it did, and the time since, you know, was amazing. Those joint passes to be able to go fuck up into Turo. And I hope that, much like Turo having its struggles back then, was the catalyst for great change in the aftermath, you know, in the wake of whatever it was that transpired then. I just hope that whatever this is, yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but I hope that the same thing will happen. So, you know, I think the other important point as well is this is a great opportunity to re-engage with local iwi, or just locals, because as you and I both know, there's a bunch of people in Ohakune and in Whakapapa National Park who will potentially be celebrating, you know, the downfall of Ariel because of the potential, you know, upside for them to see, you know, the things that they're passionate about heading for a long time, you know, and so I hope that this is the time that those voices are heard and those needs are met.
Okay, how likely do you think it will be that season pass holders unify as one alongside all iwi to try and make some play to keep the branding and stuff of RAL with more capital to an existing commercial structure which has failed?
Not a lot.
Over under. Give me the over under.
When. Well, that's the thing, right? Liz mentioned one thing. You've got these life pass and season pass holders for whom, you know, the Maunga is their playground, and then you've got local iwi for which the Maunga is their everything, and the whakapapa that comes with it. And they're just two disparate things right now. And season pass holders, life pass holders, I think for the most part, are just, you know, thinking with pure recreation, like, hey, this is my thing that I've paid for and that I have, you know, every right to enjoy without any consideration whatsoever for the locals of the town, the lifers, and local iwi. And so, yeah, I really can't see them coming together because it's just worlds apart, those communities, you know?
It's also going to be so tough to navigate too, because it's going to be like, what's enough of a point of difference between all this new money when they've done it before, when they use public funders cash to come through into it, right? And then every time there's something like this that rolls up, instantly the big boy's like, "Ooh, fire sale, I like that." Plug it into the ecosystem. And so then I was talking with someone else about this. I said, what are the, if hypothetically the public fund, I mean, you're gonna have to try and convince thousands of people to pay more money after they've already paid for something which they've already paid for. So that's like one thing, but park that to the side. if it doesn't, it goes down the route of, okay, cool, we need, regardless, someone needs to come in that's actual an operator that's done this, right? And so the only other two that would have scale would be Real NZ with Cardi's and TC, or NZski.com. There's only two, right? Like Snow Planet's not going to go.
That's in New Zealand.
Okay, this is my point though. The next question I was going to ask is, no, I won't say it, but hypothetically, then it becomes an over-under of do you think local iwi would unify to allow an overseas corporate machine to come through and utilize local land for external overseas profit? Because that's not even a money thing, then it's straight culture. Because I actually think eventually culture is going to trump the commerce, because they're going to have to tick off. Because then what's going to happen is, let's say a bigger overseas company comes through, blows it up, makes it epic, chucks in all this cash, and is just printing out cash that then goes overseas. How does that play?
Yeah, I think, and unfortunately, I can see a world where that happens. Some JV with, I'm not going to say that, it could come from anywhere, right? Like, we don't know who the massive players are, at least I'm not intimately familiar with who the massive players are in Asia who could 100% swoop in and throw a JV at, local iwi. I mean, much like a lot of infrastructure projects around the country. And so I can actually see that panning out much more than I can any form of national public assistance or commercial. I don't think Real or NZ Ski, they might. I don't know. You know them more than I do, but I don't think.
Hypothetically, if there was a bigger overseas lowball offer for the fire sale, or hypothetically there was a local one which was even under that, do you think iwi would go for an overseas higher offer or a local lower offer, balancing out culture versus commerce?
I honestly think they'd go overseas because they've been burned so many times with local, right? I mean, NZ Ski were a part of those discussions back in the day, and as were Imagine Cardi's and TC when they were separate entities, and Real and whoever the other operators were. That's even if they're a part of the conversation, but I think there's just too much bad blood for a local big player to come in.
I got one more that's about to jump in, then I'm going to boost, but appreciate you, my bro. Hope you're wanting to say what's up to Ruth. Congrats on the 14 years as well, mate. You're definitely punching. Love your work.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, I haven't been snowboarding in like the last 10 as a result, but it's totally worth it. No, all right, man.
Keep hustling, bro. I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you soon. Later, Jay.
Thanks, bro. Yep.
Shot G. Before we go, I've got one more that's just jumped in. His name is Barry. He's joined us. What's up, Baz? How are you, bro?
I'm good. Thanks, Rebet. Thanks for hosting us. It's awesome. Good.
Finally, someone with Wi-Fi that I can actually hear their flipping microphone. Holy shit, Rada, he is up to piss all. Holy.
Well, truly, this is a skinny 4G from Oaxaca, and the manga is right out my window. I just have to turn to my right, and I can see the manga right there.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask what providers they are. But you can say, and I know I'm friends with both from other things, but I will say so far, Skinny is currently winning the data bandwidth to make me at least be able to hear. I've got a few minutes here before I got to bounce to my daughter's dinner, but I'm interested in your 2 cents at a macro, how you think this plays out. Give me a couple of minutes of fire and just flip and just have at it.
Well, I think there's several things that are really important to me, right? Like, I think Sam touched on a whole bunch of stuff around corporate governance and the road down the corporate track, and I think it's pretty clear that that's failed. And I would hate to see that line of inquiry continue. Like, I really want the crowd-funded idea, I think, is great. I'm reluctant to say they should throw out a whole bunch more life passes, because every time they do that, they diminish possible cash flow. But like, I'm all about sort of going back to its roots and sort of being a humble family, and really good top quality on snow product, but not trying to blow it out of the water with all kinds of fanciful kind of $100 million of spend. I thought Justin's thoughts around the iwi involvement, that's just so huge. I mean, I'm a Jaffa, but we own property here, and living the transient kind of remote working lifestyle allows me to spend a bit of time down here, but I'm certainly not a local. I think the iwi voice is massively important, and I'd advocate really strongly for local concessions, and especially iwi concessions, to make it available to the locals here and embrace them as part of it. I think for a long time, People holding positions of power at RAL have kind of gate-kept bringing people in and training them up as their replacements, and I think that needs to be embraced a lot more, right? You need to get the school leavers up there and working and training and doing courses in avalanche safety and running ski field operations, and they can take that out to the world and go anywhere with it, and like that opportunity for them excites me quite a lot. I really think the RAL thing, selling out to a corporate and taking it away and making it a profit-driven enterprise, that's a big mistake. They need to keep it profit-free. They need to keep it tax-free, and the trust kind of needs to come to the party here, man. I think they've let the people down a little bit. They've taken shareholding over what's legal. They're kind of at the trust right now, and they kind of need to sort that stuff out. And then that foundation of trust needs to be built back up. I think all the directors kind of, unfortunately, they haven't done a great job, and we need new blood across the board. And we definitely need some co-governance. We need some of the locals involved.
Your prediction, RL ceases to exist, a new player comes in, or RL sorts their shit out and it will stay RL?
I'd like to think RAL 2.0. I think it needs to be fundamentally different. And by that, I mean fundamentally different people involved. But I think all the benefits that we get and the likelihood of the future prosperity of the Hill is all about retaining that tax-free status and not-for-profit status. So I think it's kind of a mix of both, RAL 2.0.
And RAL 2.0 would basically have unification of iwi to at once replace the board, replace the faces, bring in new capital, and then move forward, right?
Correct.
Seems like a pretty simple solution there, Barry, but obviously there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I always find conversations like this interesting because so many people tell me all this different thing. I'm just trying to navigate, like, it just sounds really complex because you've got a lot of people involved with a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of external things that are at play, and then you've got this funky intersection because it's not like you can just copy paste the model like you would any other resort in the world that just comes in, I pay the lease, I do my thing and piss off onto the next. You've literally got commercial integration or alignment with multitude of different iwi and locals, which is unlike most that seen before. I really appreciate you jumping in, Barry. Hit me up a private message. I think I want to do another one of this and actually invite a few more different faces to it. So hit me up and I'll get you on for the next one for sure. I just literally jumped on. I was just on a really interesting FaceTime call before, and I was like, hey man, can we just go live with this shit? Like, you're saying some stuff here. His internet sucked though, but we flipping got there. Well, good on you, Skinny, and well done. And that will hurt for my friends at Vodafone and Spark. But hey, if Skinny's winning today, Skinny's winning. So good on you, Skinny. Appreciate it. Shot, Barry.
Awesome. Thanks for cheers.
Cheers, team. Later, bro. There we go. Good little banter. All right, I'm off. Taking my daughter for dinner, and I'll see you all soon. I'm going to do this again, but what I think I'll do is I'll invite a few other little people that are in the ecosystem, and they'll be able to jump in as well. All right, team.